Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mediumship Sisters podcast. We are in season 6. This is episode 5, and I'm here with Mariana and Ciarra. And we have a wonderful guest that I've been waiting to share with you all for years, quite honestly. His name is Anthony Mrocka. He is a teacher of mine, or has been a teacher of mine, and he is a traveling medium when he puts on shows, travels all over the country in the United States, mentors, and does private readings as well. Welcome, Anthony Mrocka, to join us today.
Thank
Woo!
you. I'm really
Woo!
excited. I'm excited to be here as always. I always say, sorry it took me so long to get here.
Well,
Okay,
it was
we're
worth the
happy.
wait.
You made
It
it.
was, it was worth the wait. We just wanted to kind of share your kind of origin story when you started this path on mediumship, and you can share it however feels comfortable to you, just so people can kind of see where you came from, how you got to where you are now. Because now you're traveling, you're doing shows, you're really a public
Known.
when people think about mediumship, especially in the United States, you are someone that is, one of the names. So, can you just kind of bring us back to where it started for you and share with us a little bit about that?
100%. You know what? It's so interesting because I always say, first off, I was not a believer. I was 100% complete skeptic. I wasn't a cynic, but I was a skeptic there. And I actually remember seeing John Edward on TV on Crossing Over. I'm going to say 20 years ago. It could be 25 now. I don't even know. And I was sure those people were paid actors, and I changed the channel. Like, those people are paid actors, and I changed the channel. And years after that, after I seen that TV show, this isn't something for me. My abilities came out older. I was older in life. I was in my 30s actually. I had an issue with drugs and alcohol. Looking back now, I know those issues really stem from numbing my sensitivity. So I was always extremely sensitive. I think as a medium, we're empathic. I always say medium is just someone that's ultra sensitive to energy. And so looking back now, I know that drugs and alcohol really numbed the feelings and pain, I guess, that was constantly feeling. And so it's not something like when I saw spirit when I was little, see an angel in any way. I have a story of addiction, I guess trauma, and therefore I blocked out a lot of my childhood. So if you would even ask me, do I remember so and so, my years of did I ever see an angel? I could tell you I don't know. It's nothing that I ever could even think of because I blacked out. My actually first memory I have of my childhood, I was in fifth grade, and it's only because I got my finger cut in a wood splitter there when I was helping my father, and I have a scar on my finger. Like that's my first memory that I could remember back to there. So it's not something that I thought that I seen spirit, and actually that actually messed with me in some way, only because when I first started on this journey the books that were out there were of the main big one. John Edward, James Van Praagh, Lisa Williams, I think had a book, and I can't remember her name. She's passed on now. Sylvia Brown books, and all of them. When I picked up their books and I, would read a book, all of them said they saw, something when they were little type thing, and I was like, that's not me. Maybe I'm not a medium. And so it wasn't until my 30s I got sober, and again, I got sober. It's probably my sixth or seventh. I don't know. I don't really count, but it was probably my sixth or seventh time getting sober. I'm not a first-time winner of sobriety. I've been sober for, certain periods of time. Then I would go out and get more research. And then there was a time, though, in my 20s, I was sober for 6 years. And I was involved in 12-step programs, and I was bringing people through the steps, and I had sponsees, so I was helping people to go through the steps. And then yet again, that was right around 2008, actually, when the mortgage crash happened, and I was a mortgage broker. And I decided to, as sober, I decided to go to bartending school and figured I would just supplement my income as this crash was happening and the housing crash was happening here um, with bartending.
Because
And
that's not a recipe for disaster at all.
yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like I was already setting myself up for more research.
I love how you call it research too.
I
Perfect.
know, me too. I
Research is
love the
good.
term
I
research.
love that.
Yeah, it was like, and so I went to bartending school, and immediately after, like I saw someone sent me an ad for, I think that even the school sent me an ad for a club, and I went down there and she was like, "Oh my God, you're the one that we're looking for." You know what I mean? She like hired me on the spot. Like I just got out, like it was like day one out of bartending school. And I actually did it for a little while sober, but eventually it caught up to me. And so the reason why I'm bringing that up because those about 2 or 3 years were probably some of the worst years of my life in the sense of from having, sobriety for so long to losing everything again. And those were the years that like dragged me, what I believe to be hell. I tell everyone as a medium, I don't believe in hell, literal hell, but I believe that there's hell on earth. And I think that we can go through our own personal hells there. So, like I said, this isn't something that I sought out to do. This isn't something that I was like, oh, that's cool, because like I'm not a believer in it. When I saw John Edward on TV, it's the only one I seen at that time, and I believe that one of the things that happened to me was I was working for my father owns a machine shop, old school tool and die, so like manly man stuff there in that sense. And I worked for him basically most of my life. I did go to college, but believe it or not, I went to Johnson Wales in Providence, Rhode Island to be a chef, and I've never worked in a kitchen one day there. So I came home from there and I started working for my dad because that was the easier thing to do. But um, one day, our secretary at the time invited me to a medium event. And I walked in and she's like, "Oh, do you want to go to this medium event?" And believe it or not, back then, this has got to be, I don't even know, same thing, probably 20 years ago. They did them in Barnes and Nobles. They actually allowed a medium to come into Barnes and Noble in like the center area of Barnes and Noble, and they set up chairs and they did this demonstration. And this secretary was going there, and she's like, "Oh, do you want to come to this?" I go, what's a medium?" And she's like, she brought up John Edward. I was like, "No way, those people are, I don't believe in that." And she left at 4:30 in the afternoon. By 4:30, my mind changed. Like oddly, like throughout the day, like I went to this note, and I remember like catching her. She was running out the door. I'm like, "You still going?" And she's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Save me a chair." She's like, "I will." And during that event, I got a reading, and lady made me stand up, and she started saying things to me from one of my grandmothers that was on the other side, and she started saying things to me that were undeniable. At the time I was young, I was in my 20s. At the time I was um into cars, right? In car stereos. I was in a car club, like the whole nine, and audio and visual. I had 7 TVs in my car. Insanity there. But and that was like when TVs were first coming out. Now it's like we have all those screen type of thing. But I had this car that was always entering the car shows, and she knew like the almost exact amount that I spent. And I was like, how does this lady know this? So she made me a believer. That's what I'm trying to say. Because the evidence that she brought through, I was like, there's no way that anyone could know this. And I wind up setting up a private reading with this woman after, and I did go and do a reading, and she brought up other things, and it was really good. It was really evidential to me. And she had told me at that time, she had said to me, I want to, I do a class on Monday nights, and I want to invite you to the class. And she was like, it's $25 per class or something like that. And I was like, no way, this lady wants my money. Right. She said, you have something but it's 20, come to the class and it's $25. And I was like, that's how skeptical I was. Like, no, this lady just wants my money. I didn't do anything. Fast forward about 10 years there. So I'm now in my 30s. I'm getting sober again. And as after I got sober, I really, this time for me, it was a wake-up call. One of my best friends, one of my closest friends passed away. He was one of my best friends from high school. We kind of went our separate ways, you know what I mean? We were adults now, but he did reach out to me. We kind of still stayed in contact here and there. He reached out to me. I always felt guilty because I never reached back out to him about 2 months before he passed but he passed away. I had to in another whole story that I don't want to get into. I oddly had to do his services because long and short, his mom had lung cancer and she was waiting for a lung transplant. And so they couldn't tell her that her son died because she had 2 other children, 2 daughters, that they didn't want her to give up on her life if she found out that her son died because she was like really about to get a lung transplant type thing. So I did all the services for him. And I just knew if I didn't change, I was going to die. Right. I was gonna die at that point. And there was times that I wanted to die. I've crashed my car head on into a telephone pole. I've been shot at by a police officer legitimately. There it wasn't because I did anything bad. I just showed up at a house that was being watched, and they were raiding the house at that time. It was like a scene out of the, I don't know, some of you are Canadian. There, I
Yes.
don't know if you have that show Cops. There that we have
Yes.
on it was like a scene out of that. Like they ran from behind the house and black didn't even have uniforms on. I'm thinking like I'm getting mugged, so I turned around and ran. There I didn't know there were police, and so I ran, and because I ran, the cop. As they said, a bullet was released from the chamber
Oh.
there in that sense. And it actually knocked me out cold because he was so close to me. And I had a powder burn on my neck. I had less hearing in my right ear because of it there in that sense. So all these things leading up to I should be dead type thing. So when I got sober and my friend died, I started to to ask. Like I was never raised religious, but I always believed there was something more than just us, right? There,
Mhm.
what we call God, I guess, but it wasn't a man in the sky, and it wasn't also organized religion. I wasn't raised religious in any way. Actually,
Mhm.
my mom was a single mom, and I had two older sisters. They went to CCD, but my mom went back to college at night school to get her master's so she could better herself because she was a single mother of three. So she didn't have time to take me to CCD. I never went through all that stuff, right? So I didn't ever have the dogma of religion in that way. And that's also important too, because it leads to the part of I then had at some point I had an experience with Mother Mary, which I just posted recently on my socials about there. But this woman in my 30s, when I started to pray, why am I here? Because most of my friends died. It wasn't just one friend. I mean, my one close friend was one, but being through in the rooms of 12 steps and AA and NA and other things like that, you get to know people and they die. I can't count on two hands how many friends of mine have died there. So I was like, why am I here? I should be dead, you know? And I started to ask God. I just started praying a simple prayer. Actually, someone, believe it or not, someone gave me the CD, these three CD, a set of, it was three CDs, and it was a Christian pastor, and his name is Andy Stanley. He's out of Atlanta, Georgia. And Andy Stanley's awesome because he doesn't how do I could get the message from him without the dogma, basically, what the way that he preached. And I listened to these CDs and I was like, God was talking to me. Like I really felt like God was speaking to me as I was driving and listening to these CDs. And so in there, in Andy Stanley's CDs, there was a prayer, and he, about asking like God's will, basically. And I
Mhm.
didn't say, why am I here? I just started to pray to use me as I'm supposed to, why am I here? Use me as you see fit, type of a thing. And that's when everything started to happen there. And I started to go through crazy synchronicities, even meeting a local pastor there, and who then wanted to teach me the Bible because he knew God, like God was using me for something. And we went our separate ways when I asked him about Reiki, and he told me it's a work of the devil, there type of thing. So, but I knew like his, it's like anything else, like what we always say, sometimes people come in and out of your life for a season, right? And
Mhm.
he was in there for that season,
Mhm.
there to really help me awaken me and show me really that there's a plan, basically, and trust that plan, type of a thing. And all these synchronicities start happening, and now here's the circle back. Now I run into the woman that years ago was the medium that I went for the reading for. I run into her. I see that she's having an event, right? So I go, it's now, it's not in Barnes and Noble anymore, but I go down to her event that's kind of local to me in here in New Jersey. And as I'm walking through the hotel lobby, I see her. And she's like leaving the bathroom before the event even starts. And she recognizes me from years ago. And out of my mouth, I don't even know how, like it wasn't me. I didn't go in there and formulate the question. Out of my mouth came, "Are you still teaching?" And
Wow.
she was like, "Oh," and she's like, "Why don't you make an appointment for a reading and let's talk?" I was like, "Okay, I'll make an appointment for one reading." So I went for this reading, and I made the appointment. It was just a couple weeks wait, or a month maybe. And about a week or two before the reading, she called me. Right, I got this phone call and I picked up. I'm like, "Hello," and it was her. And she's like, "I know you're here next week this time, but plan on the reading's an hour, but plan on spending an hour and a half with me, because I know what you are." I was like, "Okay, there." So we go to the reading. She does this reading. It was great. At the end, she says, I want to help you," and I said, "What do you mean you want to help me?" And she goes, I want to teach you. You have this ability, and you need to be taught. 'Cause that's what I'm being told. And my first reaction was, how much?
Right.
Because I'm still skeptical. How
It's
much?
more than
I've never.
$25.
Yeah, I've never seen spirit. I'm waiting for like something like I'm waiting to like go to the bathroom at 3 a.m. and there's like someone dead person's gonna be in my hallway like wanting to
Right.
talk to me.
Right.
There. And and she says nothing because that's what I've been told to do. And I said, "Oh, okay." She goes, "We'll meet once a week at my house. We'll set up a time. You come here once a week, and we'll work with you. I'll work with you for an hour." And and I said, "Yeah, sure. There's not. What do I have to lose? There's nothing." Like again, looking back, how perfect spirit is to me is like if she would have said $100, I would have said she just wants my money type of a thing. You know what I mean?
And maybe you wouldn't have done it then,
Exactly. That's
right?
why I was like, she really listened to what they, you know what I mean? She was like,
Right.
nothing. This is what I've been told to do. I was like, oh, okay. I did start working with her. The funny thing is, she taught me all about energy, but she never taught me how to do a reading. And
Huh.
and I eventually, about after a few months, we went our separate ways. There in that sense. And oddly enough, right after that, like I was with my roommate at the time and this girl, and we went to the diner in New Jersey, and we drove back home. The woman was driving, and we got back to I had a condo, and we dropped back to the condo. We were sitting in the parking lot, and they said they knew this was, I was going to this woman, and they said, oh, they were like egging me on, like, oh, just do a reading for her, and I was like, okay, I don't really know, like just come on, just try. And I was like, all right. I was like, well, give me your bracelet. At the time, I was doing psychometry, but I didn't even know it was psychometry.
Right.
I said, hand me your bracelet. And so the woman handed me her bracelet, and I shut my eyes, and I just started to feel and trust all the energy. About 45 minutes later, I opened my eyes, and she was like dumbfounded because she's like, how do you know that about me? And I was
Love
like,
it.
I don't know. I was like, I don't know. I just was listening to everything that was happening internally and what I was being told. And it was funny. It's not funny, actually. This isn't funny. This part isn't funny. Um, Interesting, I should say. I left the car at the time, because I was going for so long, my roommate got up and left the car and went back inside. I left the car when I was done with the reading. I went back inside. I guess I was still like wide open. My roommate came down. I had like a condo with a little loft, and he came down the steps. And when he came close to me, here's one of the things I always, even in psychic readings, right? Because I was really giving psychic stuff. I wasn't connecting with dead people yet. I was giving stuff about their life, which to me is like more of a psychic reading. But I always was receiving information, right? And so there was something that was giving me the information. So as he came close to me, I started to still feel and hear the information that was being given to me. So I started saying to him, and I said to him,
Oh, no.
you get emotional. I said to him, because he asked after I started giving information and there was evidential, and he was like, "Holy shit!" He asked me about something about a relationship issue that he was having, and he was stuck between two women type thing, and I heard, if you go with her, it will be the death of you, right? He's now dead.
Oh,
He died. He overdosed, and because of him deciding that he was still gonna not listen to spirit or whatever was said. And I'm not saying he needed to listen to me then. I actually didn't know the impact of what I was saying at that time. There of telling him, right? Because this is my first reading I've ever did there. So I just said, if you, because he was in, he had this ex, and then this new girl was in the picture, and he was like really in love with his ex, and it was his ex fiance. They were getting back together. He was newly sober, this whole thing. And I said, if you should go to the new one there who seemed to be trouble, it would be the death of you, not knowing that literally those words. And it wasn't right away. It was over time, maybe two or 3 years. But he caused so much drama in his life that between the two girls, that he couldn't take it anymore. So he went back to using drugs and heroin, and then eventually he overdosed. There. So that was like my first experience, right? That was like, and not saying because it wasn't until years later his death there. So I didn't know that I was right there, but like giving that woman very specific evidential information about her own life made me start to believe, okay, there's something here, right? There's something that's happening, and I didn't really know where the information was coming from. That's the best part. And I was At the time, I was newly sober for my, sixth or seventh or eighth time. I don't even know how many times I did research on that. And I was, my life was really an act of surrender at that moment. I was volunteering for a shelter. But at the time I was living in Paterson, New Jersey, which, if anyone knows where Paterson is, probably you guys don't, but it's an inner city really of northern New Jersey. It's like there's bad sections of Paterson. You don't want to be in Paterson, there. But I was living on top of what it was called Garrett Mountain, and there was condos up there, and it was a nicer area there. You wouldn't consider it Paterson. Most people consider it West Paterson. I was at that time driving down, and I was bringing a 12-step meeting into a shelter, and then also from that they asked me to be a recovery coach, and like so I was volunteering all this. And I basically was working part time. I was developing, my abilities here. I didn't have a real job and I was really broke, really and poor. You know what I mean? But I knew that God was taking care of me in some way, or the universe was taking care of me there. So I just kept following the path, right? I just kept following what was happening to me. And then all of a sudden, after I did a couple practice readings, someone asked me to give them a reading. And I was like, all right, they're like, oh, come on, just give my cousin a reading, just come to with me. I'm going to bring her to her house. So I did it. And actually, this is the first time I left there and she handed me $60. And I was like, whoa, like, no, I don't, she's like, no, please take this. And that was like the first time that, I ever got paid for reading in some way. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess this is what I should be doing in some way. Um, and then and then I'll let you start asking questions. Sorry. Then after that, it was like all of a sudden, like I was driving part-time for my cousin who owns a print studio, graphic and design printing studio. And I was just driving his deliveries to his corporate places. I was working like 12 noon to like 4 p.m. basically, part-time. And I was like, oh, I guess I should start doing readings, And so I kind of just there was no website or Facebook, or there was a Facebook was around, but there was no like ads and stuff like there is today, right? This is going back 15 years ago now.
No
And
social media.
Yeah.
yeah, it wasn't big at all. There was no
Yeah.
mediumship circles or anything like that.
Yeah.
When I started to, the funny thing is, so I read for one of my close friends who was technically my sponsor at the time through AA, and he was a hairdresser in a very upscale women's salon here in New Jersey. And he told one of the girls about me, and another one who came in, and I did a reading for her. And she left there and started telling everyone. And now I'm starting to get text messages for readings.
Wow.
One day, my phone, uh, within, I think it's 48 hours, 9 people called for readings.
Oh, yeah.
And wow, I know, right? It sounds great. And at the time, who's my wife today, who was my girlfriend then, when I told her, she's like, this is wonderful. You know what I mean? Like, wow. And I was like, no, you don't understand. They're like, I don't know where this information's even coming from. And
Yeah.
so I was like scared shitless, excuse my
Yeah.
language. They're like, 9 people, what's going on here? But I also, and 3 people, 3 of them were from New York City, from Manhattan. I was like, you're
Yep.
coming to Manhattan to come, like, I don't, it was scary. I ran. I put into Google these things that were happening to me. I found the Journey Within, Janet Haven's church
Yes. Yes.
there, which was only 25 minutes from my house there. So I started to go to Sunday service, and I started to see that there's other people like this, right? There's other people there because she was doing, she did a Sunday service, and at the end of the Sunday service, she would have a demonstration, and she would have students get up there. So when I saw that and I went there and I started going to Sunday service there, it was like kind of like my church in some way. And Lauren, my wife now, and who was my girlfriend at the time, we started going there, and just watching the service. I ran to the church to take classes, right? And because I didn't know where any of this was coming from, and I kind of enrolled in the classes. And what was interesting enough for me then, and it wasn't taught by Janet, it was taught by a different woman. They basically told me I was doing it wrong. And what's interesting, because that's exactly how I read today. There. So, there. I think it's an interesting experience looking back now, because the way that I teach other mediums now is that there really is there's no playbook. There's no playbook on what we do, and stop putting people in a box because people have different abilities in some way. And that's what I think I learned from that whole lesson. But I ran back and got myself in classes because I was afraid. I did do the readings eventually, but I was scared. I was scared. I have a whole thing around on YouTube. It's called Fear and Doubt in Your Mediumship. And please excuse my language in there. It was a Facebook Live from probably 10 years ago, and there's a lot of F-bombs in there. But I was really raw and honest. I was deathly afraid of giving readings. I was deathly afraid that nothing was going to come through. I was deathly afraid of what I sounded or looked like there at that time, because this person's going to pay me money to come and sit with me, and I have to give them, the answers to life, or, show me, what am I thinking now? You know what I mean? Like silly
Right.
stuff there in some way. But I did, and it was just text, just through text. Like people would text me, and I'm like, all right, yeah, come to my house Monday. So I was working part time, and then I started doing these readings at like 7 p.m. In my condo. And I'm looking back now, like it's so funny to me because I had a roommate, so there was no real privacy. And I would just put two chairs in my bedroom. And now that
I
I think
love
about
it.
it, there was like women in my bedroom, the whole night, like two
The
chairs
bedroom.
far away from each other in my bedroom there. And I would do the readings there because it was the only place that we had privacy. You know what I mean? So and that's, I mean, that's really how I started. I started before, some of the experiences I started to have were undeniable to me. And like I went to meet my mom before I started doing readings. I went to meet my mom. This is going back a little bit. I went to meet my mom for dinner at like a restaurant outside. And when I went there, I walked by this table, and then I sat down with my mom and actually my girlfriend at the time. And I knew everything about the woman across the table, and she was married, but I knew everything. I knew she was a fall down drunk behind closed doors. I knew she was a housewife that just wasn't doing well, and she masked it all. And I'm thinking, I was a bartender. I'm thinking I must know her from the bar, right? She
Yeah.
must have been
Yeah.
in the club, or I did work at like this dive bar one night a week for more income. I must know her from there. Maybe she fell off a bar stool or something. And I'm like fixated. My mom's talking. I'm like fixated on her because I knew everything. And oh, I missed that part too. Another woman another woman came along and told me I was bartending in a nightclub, believe it or not, here in New Jersey. And so nightclubs are loud, bang, bang, bang. You know what I mean? So you can't really have conversations there. But there was a woman from my high school actually that used to come, and she was younger than me, but she would see me in there, and one day she reached out to me and said, I've been praying for you, and I was like, why? And she's like, because you don't look well, And then when I got sober, she reached out to me again, and she said every time she came to the club, she would leave there and she would pray to Mother Mary to me. And she told me I needed to bring a pink rose to Mother Mary. And I was like, who's Mother Mary? That's how not religious I am. There. And she was like, the Mother of God, don't you know? And I was like, oh, yeah, okay. So I like looked it up there. So she's telling me now she's been praying, and here I am sober, and she would have been praying for me about Mother Mary, type of a thing. And realistically, she's the one then that said, "I want you to go to this woman for as a different psychic that started to teach me. Go for this reading." And I was like, I don't really have money, like I don't like I don't have a bank account at the time. Like I have cash. I'm a bartender. I have all this cash. And she's like, well, just I brought her the money, and she made the appointment for me. And I got on the phone with this woman, and it was good. And she talked to me. I was again newly sober, and she told me, some good stuff and gave me some evidence. But what happened was about a week later, my friend, this was the time of Blackberries, if you remember Blackberry, like
Yes.
Messenger, she messaged me, and I was bartending, and she said, have you been thinking about that psychic? I was like, no, not really. Why? And she's like, well, she's been thinking about you. And she reached out to me, and she said that she needs to talk to you. And as I'm typing, I don't have any money because there's my skepticism again. Like, I don't have any more money. She messaged me before I even finished and said she knows you don't have any money there, but she wants to talk to you. And I was like, okay, set it up for Tuesday. She's like, no, she wants to talk to you tomorrow at 8 p.m. I was like, okay. I got on the phone with that woman, and so it wasn't like that one woman that taught me told me this. This other woman they were not connected at all, said, you've come up since last week, you've come up in every reading, and Spirit wants me to give you these messages. I know you don't have any money, so whenever you can, just donate to a church or whatever you want, an organization in some way, donate the money there. But I need to give you this message. She then said, this is who you are. You're going to start having weird experiences, and I will never charge you anything again. Here's my number, here's my email, and you're going to have questions when these experiences start to arise. So the reason why I forgot that part, because when I went and sat with my mom and I had with that woman and I knew everything about her, I reached out to that woman. I emailed her like, "What the fuck just happened?" Excuse my language again. There, you can you swear on this podcast?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
A
Sorry.
little bit, a little
Yeah.
bit.
All right. I won't go crazy. There. So she was like, I emailed her and I was like, what just happened? And she's the one, oh, you had a psychic impression. When you walked by her, you walked through her energy, her aura, you knew
Yeah.
everything about her, there in that sense. And, so I actually went to Reiki with her because she also did Reiki. And, after a session with her, actually, I came home and that's when I taught myself how to meditate. And when I started to meditate, I started to hear things that didn't make sense. Like
Mhm.
I couldn't understand. And here's the funny part about all of this. Newly sober, I absolutely couldn't tell anyone because they're going to be like, he's back on drugs
Yeah,
and he
he's
needs to go back
hallucinating.
away again.
You're
I'm
hallucinating.
hallucinating,
Delusional.
oh, he's on
You're
drugs again.
insane. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
A
one of those things.
psychosis. You're done.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't speak about this often, but I will say it because like I know I will write about this at one point. Um, I heard direct voice. So as you guys know, as mediums, direct voice, in my understanding and belief, is extremely rare to hear a voice outside of yourself speaking to you, right? And as I was meditating, I heard clear as day, don't be so anxious, experience. I am single. I do not have a roommate at this time, right? I don't so my roommate moved out. I own the condo actually, but I'm living in the place by myself. I'm thinking I heard that like me and you are talking, a woman in my room, right? And I'm like, there's no like is someone messing with me right now? Like, did someone get in to my condo? I left my door open, one of my friends got in type thing. But I stayed in the meditation and I asked mentally, I didn't say it out loud, like, who is this? And I heard the voice outside myself again, and it said Saint Mary. She didn't say Mother Mary. She said Saint Mary. And now I'm freaked out and I open my eyes because no doubt someone's in my room with me, messing with me. And no one's there. I actually search the condo. I go into the spare bedroom. I go upstairs in the loft there. I'm searching, thinking like someone is messing with me. I was smoking cigarettes at the time. I take Newport Lights. Oh, there, what just happened? And I'm like, oh my God, did something just communicate with me? And I went back down to meditate. And the second time, I asked a specific intention or a question, and I saw so vivid, not like a TV screen, but in behind my eyes, I saw all of a sudden I saw this reflection, and it was you ever see the silhouette of Mary that they draw?
Oh,
I
yeah.
saw the silhouette of Mary, and I was like, okay, she's still here with me, and I'm seeing it. And all of a sudden, that morphed into a pink rose. And I was like, oh my God,
I
like
was
there's
just
the pink
thinking
rose,
that.
right? And then it morphed into the skull and bones. You ever see like the
Mhm.
skateboard skull and bones? But
Yeah.
I knew, oh no, it went into the scorpion symbolism. And then it went into the skull and bones. Now, the reason why I went into scorpion symbolism, because I was asking about a specific person that was in my life at that time, and they were a Scorpio there. And then it went into the skull and bones. So that meant to me danger. So I felt like I asked a specific question, and she was answering me about someone was dangerous to me. And I got up again. I smoked another cigarette. I was like, what is happening? And those two meditations on hearing direct voice I get emotional just talking about it. Like I've never heard it again. And it made me a believer. Like that's what made like I was so skeptical. Like people don't understand the problem further, but now as a medium, like, yeah, sure, he was a skeptic. All right, yeah, okay. That like no, like that's what made me believe that there's something more than what we believe to be as physical reality.
Right.
There. I think I get emotional because there's been years I've threatened her to come through and hear that voice again, and I haven't. There in that sense. So there, but and
Nice.
again, I still I still couldn't tell people at the time, and eventually I did tell who was my sponsor at the time, and I think it started. I did eventually told my family and stuff like that, and I come from my dad's 100% Polish, my mom's 100% Italian. two very stubbornness there. So my mom, oh God, she's gonna kill me one day. I always say my mom has the worst resting bitch face as an Italian woman there in that sense. And so when I told her, she was like not a believer. She was like, I think she thought maybe I was a little nutty at first. And now I'll say today, my mom, if I'm in the local area, my mom comes. She actually helps. I just did one Monday night at actually my sister's yoga studio. There's like 80 people there. That's the most we could fit. And my mom comes and helps every time. You know what I mean? She's, oh, that's my son. There, like, she tells all of her friends her son's a medium. There, and that's it. Because she's seen the process now. She sees the healing that's happening. People have come up to her and talked to her about it. There in that sense. So sorry for rambling, but that's
But I want to ask you, I know we have so many questions, but I
Yeah.
just want to say this was so amazing. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, as I was listening to you, I felt some sort of healing. I really did. I felt like this energy was like lifting me up. So I'm just saying this is not synchronicity for me today. It just I feel even emotional saying this to you. Like your energy today actually is is speaking to me, is like lifting me up. Is like I can feel spirit. It's just incredible. I wanted to ask you about fear because I mean I know all of us. I hear a lot of things. First I wanted to ask you, how were you receiving things? If you were receiving hears things more like clairvoyantly, or it was your clairaudience, or um, and then I wanted to ask you about fear because you said I was afraid, and then you didn't want to do the readings, but then how did that change? Because I still get really scared about a lot of things, and I feel like new people who maybe get paid, I always say that you do a reading that is just practice reading, and I'm on fire, man. It's just like, but as soon as you have the exchange, it just very scary. So yeah.
Yeah. It's like the pressure's on. Once the exchange of money, right? The pressure's
Mhm.
on. Interesting enough. So two things. My primary senses are clairaudient and clairsentient. So I hear and feel the most. I've never, ever, ever had an experience like I was just talking about where I saw so vivid
Mm.
with my eyes closed again. I've never seen it anything like that there. Even in my work now, I really don't see. I don't see the people. I might get quick flashes of an image of something real quick there, but it's not of a person or anything like that. So I am not a clairvoyant medium type thing. Um, and you know what's so interesting too is that one when I was telling you about where I went and did that reading at someone's house and the person paid me $60. As a clairsentient, I actually started to take on the pain. Like I would literally feel.
Mm.
So what happened was in that reading, it was her grandmother coming through, and all of a sudden I felt a pain here and it shot up like an energy, like zing, and it shot all the way up and into my chest area. And I
Yeah.
explained it to the woman. I said, "Do you understand that?" She, oh yeah, yeah. And she's like, "I'll tell you after." And afterwards, she told me her grandmother was bit by a cat in her hand. And because she didn't go to the doctor and get antibiotics, it became an infection and it got into her blood. It actually went all the way up to her heart, and that's what killed her. There, I felt that pain.
Mm.
There, and for me back then, again looking back at spirit, like I wish I still got that there because it was undeniable to me, right? It was undeniable there in that sense. But now it doesn't come through like that to me. Yeah, once in
Mm.
a while I'll feel the weird things that they want me to talk about something, but very rare now there. So the other part is where you're talking about fear, right? I think that once money is exchanged, there's pressure. There's pressure that's happening here, right? There's pressure to get the person that you're looking for, right? There's pressure to get it right too in the evidence. Is the evidence going to be strong enough there?
Mm.
Then you have the pressure of your sitter. Are they a believer? Are they a non-believer type thing? Are they cynical or skeptical in any way? And to some people, no amount of evidence will ever be enough there in that sense. So there's a whole thing that's happening there. How did I get through it? One reading at a time. One reading at
Mm.
a time. And for me, it was diving into meditation, right? Learning more about my own inner self, doing a lot of self-help work. Like I was not a medium
Mm.
that just came in and was like, oh yeah, the dead are showing up and here we go there. And you know what? very early on, as I started to surrender this all and I started to understand, I started to trust spirit, and I meditated, and I would try to journal, do some automatic writing, this other stuff. I was told very early on by spirit that this wasn't about just mediumship. This was going to be a total life change for me. And so diving into shadow work was huge, right?
Mhm.
I'm not saying people need to go hire a shadow coach because there's so much program out there now that you can find, but Debbie Ford came up, Debbie Ford is really who coined like the dark side of the light chaser. She had a book around that and she came up with a whole coaching thing. I hired one of her coaches, right? I found a therapist that did EFT tapping. And instead of just doing it myself, I went to a therapist and did it with him and we worked on things. I then did inner child therapy where I sat in different chairs with you know what I mean? Went back and forth because my dad left my mom for my mom's sister. So at 2 years old, I was two. That's when you asked me, when I say I blacked out a lot of my memories, was
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
this was, and one day, you know what, it'll be in a book one day. So,
Yes, that's what I keep
that,
hearing.
Yes,
Book, book, book.
that was, it wasn't like they left and then fell in love. That was like things happened there. So it was a very traumatic household at 2 years old. I block all that out because of all the emotions, right? There in that sense. So that's why I was saying for me, I needed to work on myself. And I think a lot of mediums do, there, to be honest with you, to get to the point to be able to go out there, receive money in some way. But I will also say this too, because eventually I ran into I met Lisa Williams, right? I took a class with Lisa Williams, and Lisa took a liking to me. I guess she saw my ability from the beginning. We did this like 3 month online, and then we met in Chicago with all the other students. And immediately she just kind of attached to me there to help me in some way. And I remember we did the first time I ever stood on stage and did a platform contact there. And when came off she picked 7 people out of that class to do it with her. And I was one of them. When I came off stage, she came running up to me after and gave me a message that I'll never forget there at that point. And from then on, I came home from Chicago and like her assistant reached out to me, texted me and said, Lisa wants to talk to you. And she asked me to be a master teacher there. And I thought I was nuts at the time because here's this medium that has books. Hey, she was Hay House. She had her own TV shows. Life Among the Dead is asking me to kind of come under her and be one of her teachers. And I told her, let me think about it. And I politely declined. I said, no. I said, I want to go out and do this work. Like I felt I needed to do the work. I needed to do more readings there in that sense to be able to teach one day. Like I needed the experience. And it's kind of funny
Mhm.
because looking back, that's what St. Mary said, don't be so anxious, experience there in that sense. So um, it was doing it over and over again to answer your question, Mariana. Like, and
Mhm.
and I always say now, repetition's the mother of all skill. Don't sit in classes. You could sit in class. You can go class to class to class of different theory of different medium, and guess what? No one has the ultimate truth. It's in the practice,
Yeah.
right? Eventually, Lisa actually in Lisa's class, she showed us 2 clips, one of John Edward and one of Tony Stockwell. And when I saw Tony Stockwell, I was like, and she was making a thing around questions to just delivering statements between the two of them. There, like instead of asking things, just delivering statements. And when I saw Tony, there was something that happened inside me. Like I was like, that's how I read. There, and fast forward another year after Lisa asked me, and I said no, and I started to do readings. And at the time, this is what I'm coming back to your question, Mariana. At the time, Lisa asked me in class in front of everyone, how much do you charge per reading right now? And I said $75. That's what it was. It was $75 for the hour.
Mhm.
And she said, Anthony, if you don't, when you leave here, if you're not charging $150, I'm going to kick your arse. You know what I mean? And I was like, and I went home. I didn't change my pricing. I still felt comfortable in
Yeah.
what I was doing then. And I said to Spirit,
Mm.
you know what? When it's my time, you'll tell me. And funny enough, that's how everything started to still over the years of where I am today. That's where someone started handing me $100 and they said, don't give me change. And I was like, no, 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 let me get change. They're like, no, 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 this is yours. And then a second person did it to me.
Mm.
And then a third. And I was like, all right, I get it. I'll change, I'll go up to $100. There. So I started to
I
change my
see.
pricing. And my prices started to change based upon I was always three people had to do it, and that was my sign from spirit. It's time to move. There in that
Mhm.
sense. So, and so even with pricing,
Yeah.
don't kill me when I say this because someone's going to come for me. I don't believe I see mediums and I've mentored mediums and people have been classes and they come out of the box like swinging like
Oh
big
yeah.
bats. There, 200, and I'm
Yeah.
thinking, holy cow! Like I was like $75. Like I wanted repetition. I wanted to be able to just keep doing the work while also establishing myself and being detailed and accurate while I did it, and let me build on that there in that sense. So for me, it was lower pricing, and I was comfortable with that
I
there
love
in that
that.
sense, and there wasn't as much pressure as a high
Yes.
ticket type of item.
Yes. And you were listening to yourself. You kind of, because that's true. People can say so many things to us, but then we stop hearing that what about what I actually feel? And that's kind of our authority, I would say.
Yeah,
And all the shadow work. So I do shadow work and inner child. So when you're saying that, that's kind of the work that I do for people.
yeah,
And it's almost like you say that, I'm like, I really need to keep believing more in this thing because I kind of separated from mediumship and psychic abilities so much. But I mean, I do, but I don't. But what you're saying is so foundational because you get to know your own energy, you heal your own thing, so you're able to actually cleanly
Yeah.
be with somebody. Does that make
yeah.
sense what I'm saying?
100%. That's it. That's
Yeah.
what that's basically you're saying exactly what I was trying to say. There. It's like getting to know your own energy. Because then when you start to invite spirit in, you'll start to feel the difference of the energy of who you are to compared to what is around you or near you there in that way and how they're working through your senses in some way.
I,
Hmm. Girls, your turn.
yeah, I always say that's the most important thing is to understand your own energy before you start working psychically or mediumistically because you have to know the difference where you're getting things from because it's not you. You need to know that there's a separation there. I think that's really important. I love all the stories that you share and just like your authentic self and that you're open to sharing the struggle and that you really put in the work and that you like I also am like this as well, but you kind of used yourself as like a science project. Like you had to prove it to yourself.
Yeah.
I did something very similar in the beginning too. I was like, I would read for anyone because I wanted to just go for it and just see if I could do it. And over and over that just keeps proving to yourself. Like I had to prove it to myself because I'd be like, what? Where is this coming from? Right? Same kind of thing. Like if it's dropping in, like, where is that coming from? Who are you? That kind of wonderment. I love that story. Can you share a little bit about how because you're a dad and a husband and you have three little kids that are beautiful. I love following you on Facebook because you always post such sweet things about your kids. How is it, first of all, did they understand what you do? And what are their thoughts? I mean, it doesn't have to be like a long conversation, but how do they consider you like a superhero? Because that's kind of how I feel. Like if they,
I hope they do.
yeah, of course.
But I hope they do because I'm dad. I think they do because
Right,
I'm dad, right?
right.
As far, what was so interesting, so I have Mila who's 12, I have Phoenix who's 10, and then we had our oops, which is Ash, there. And I say that because we laugh about it, there. And it's so funny because at the time, when I started working with Cindy Kayza, probably about 2007, 16, I was introduced to Cindy. And I've shared the stage with me, her, and Lisa Williams did an event actually, and at a club over here, Liberty Live over here in New Jersey, New York. And so it was the three of us on the stage, and we were in the green room, and they're both looking at me like, "You're having another baby." I was like, "No, I'm not." Like, no, that ship has sailed. Like, we've talked about three. Maybe you're just picking up some old residue there. And they're like, "No, you're having a baby." And anytime I would be like near someone would give me a message like, there's like a child around. I was like, nah. And so it was a shock. It was a shock to us there that we had this other child. So I have Ashton, we call Ash, who's 5 years old now. There. And the reason why I'm saying about my first two, because Ash doesn't really understand. It's funny. Just this morning I asked him, I'm like, Ash, is there a heaven? I was just trying to like
Yeah.
see where his belief is there, and he's like, what's that? You know, and I was like, okay, that's not gonna work. There. So, but Mila and Phoenix are extremely sensitive, and both of them, I purposely didn't talk about what I do for the first years because I didn't want to influence them to see if they would see spirit, if they would, see an angel, there or have their own. I didn't want to influence their experience, right? And it's funny because one time we went to a John Edward one, and I got a reading, right, from John, and he's sitting there telling me how my son sees spirit, and I'm like, well, I'm a fucking medium. You can tell me that. But he's telling me how Phoenix has seen spirit, which we know, which was true because he had said to us there was a man standing by the pool in a blue uniform. There now, my wife's father's passed, and he was a postman, so they wore blue uniforms. There, so most likely we
Mm.
figured he's seeing his grandfather.
Mm.
There in that sense. So now Mila Phoenix, I think, still doesn't comprehend. I mean, not saying he doesn't comprehend. He's 10 years old, but he doesn't really ask. Like Mila is, she'll ask me, but how? Like, but how do you get that information? Or because her and her friends start to talk, and I'm sure maybe some of we tell her we have to tell both them. Ash still can't comprehend that, like both of them, that there's people out there that don't believe in what daddy does, right? There's
Yeah.
going to be parents that you may go to their house there, and if they say something bad about me, let me know. But there's going to be that type of a thing, like they're not going to understand or they're not going to believe in what I do, and that's okay,
Mhm.
so but I think Mila is really questions because what we did hear one time, someone texted my wife. It was her best friend and the parents that they live down the street from us type thing, and they're best friends. But like Mila on a sleepover said like, "Oh yeah, your grandmother's here," and I had to tell Mila, "You can't do that. Like, you can't just say that. Like, you need to back it up with evidence and stuff like
Right.
that. You know,
Right.
there.
Right.
So she has seen me because what the clips, if you ever see any of my clips that are from the clubs or something like that, the reading clips, it's usually me doing. I have to edit they send me the footage of the thing, and I'm editing it, and so she comes in and watches me, or she'll see them there, and she wonders how I get that information. I've never. I bought her tarot deck for kids there, and I'm hoping I think it's cool. I'm like, yeah, it'd be cool. Like I could teach you it, and then you could go to your friends' parties when you're teenagers. Girls
Right.
always want to know that stuff.
Right.
There, that sense.
Right.
So I think she's more drawn to it.
Yeah. And just like teaching them too, like I know my kids are a little bit older. Well, they are older. They're like adults, basically, 18 and 20 years old. But I always and I wasn't doing mediumship when they were little. So I know Mariana and Ciarra have younger kids, and I always just talk about intuition too, like following your gut, like your knowing is stronger than what if someone else is telling you what you should be doing. So that was something too, like I always encourage. And I'm sure that you and your wife too, like talk about like following their path, right? Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm laughing because when you're talking to me, it's funny because like there's times where like my daughter plays on a travel softball team, and when we're going to the games, and usually I'm driving her to the game. Maybe I'm not, but my wife would probably argue she drives her more. But when we leave and I go, you're gonna hit a triple today, and her first at bat, she hits a triple,
Yeah.
and she looks over at me and she's like, my dad's psychic. You know what I mean? Like it's like a thing now, there. Where something just happened when I was down at my sister's, I was telling her the story. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I was telling my sister my brother-in-law was there first. And we were in the elevator and they were like Spiel said something and I did something and she was like, well, Dad, you're supposed to be psychic. You know what I mean? So
Like
she'll
you
bust
messed
on me
up.
about
You
it.
didn't get it that time or something, right? Like,
Yeah, like
yeah.
you're supposed
Yeah.
to be psychic. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like
Don't
that
you know
type of thing.
everything?
Yeah. Exactly.
But
Like, no.
I want to ask you
Oh,
something so not related to this, but it keeps coming in my ear. You talked about like we're sensible, like we all are, right? And we learn with time and practice when to kind of open the doors and close the doors. But that doesn't mean that then there's kind of like a leftover or something, like I feel. So how did you deal with that sensitivity throughout the years? Maybe now you have nailed it because that's what you do, and But from like being extremely sensitive and trying to like dull that with substances to opening up, was it like the extra support you have with sponsor, like you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, so I think
Like
I understand what you're saying.
like boundaries and stuff like that that you
Like,
give yourself to.
because we're still sensitive. It doesn't matter how much we go through life. Like if you're psychic and I open myself, I can hear so much and I am like, I can't, no. Or even I had a client yesterday and it was pretty big. I mean, I clear myself, I do things. But what I'm saying, did you change your mindset from like, I was very sensitive, so I'm trying to numb that sensitivity to like how I approach life now, and I'm still with those sensitive skills?
Yeah.
Or am I making sense?
I think so. Um, I think so. Yeah, how do I cope with the sensitivity now? Right?
Yes, yes, thank you.
There, because I numbed it for so long with drugs and alcohol.
Hmm.
It's a real kicker because, I've gone back and forth for over the years with this. Like food, I could easily numb myself with food, right? Sugar,
Mm.
like there was a period of time that I loved like Sour Patch Kids and I was eating like a bag a night type of it. Like you can get so lost in that. And then, get back on the no, I need to get back in shape and I work out. So for me, it's really important. Like I work out every day, right?
Hmm.
And it doesn't have to be just like lifting weights. It's walking on the treadmill there in that sense because like 2 miles a day type of a thing. I find for me working out gets rid of some of that energy, or
Hmm.
takes away some of that chatter of the energy that's really happening too. I don't, I'm really down to like 1 cup of coffee in the morning. I'm someone that I feel like I use. What's so interesting is that the more I do the work, the more sensitive I get.
Yeah.
And
Yes,
and
that's what
and
I'm asking.
Yeah.
yeah, and that also comes out in physical ailments. I now
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
Hashimoto's, right? So, and I
Mhm.
don't have Hashimoto's because my T3 and T4 are off. My antibodies are high. So I have a gluten sensitivity. I'm Italian. I was raised Italian. Like my mom's side of the family, I was raised.
Sausage
There, like I
bread.
really didn't know my dad's side. They're the Polish side. And once in a while, my dad would have kibasi in Peru,
Pierogies
but
versus pasta.
yeah, exactly. There. So I'm not someone that grew up with a gluten sensitivity, but now I have it, and I can't eat gluten
Hmm.
anymore because I believe that's what's driving my antibodies crazy, and which is giving me Hashimoto's. There in
Hmm.
that sense. So I think that the more set, the sleep patterns too. I think that the more we
Hmm.
do the work, the more sensitive we become to become better mediums. And I actually have a theory behind that. I believe
Please tell
that.
me.
I believe that what's happening is uh, we are actually creating new neural pathways in our brain and our mind and our subconscious
Mm-hmm.
to allow spirit to come in and connect with that. And the more that
Mm-hmm.
we do these pathways, I feel like the more sensitive we're becoming in some way. I also believe, there was an old medium book. I can't remember for the life of me. I remember seeing it. It's very thin. If you would ask me, I could send it to you afterwards. But very thin book. It was from a British medium, and it's probably almost like 90 to 100 years old. It ran out of copies, but they remade the copies of it. But there was a part of this in her book where she talks about if a medium really wanted everything what they want when they first start, there would be like an electric overload within the body. There would be a nervous overload within the body. So as we're doing the work, our bodies are getting more accustomed to it. Like early on for years, right before readings, or like the early on, like hours before, or Dems, I still kind of feel it, but not as bad as I used to. You get those like that raise of energy. I don't have that anymore. It's because
Mm-hmm.
my body's so attuned to it. I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
that messed with me because it was like, what the fuck? Well, why am I not feeling this anymore? You know what I mean? Like what's happening
Oh,
here?
thank you for
There,
thinking
yeah.
of these things. This is
Yeah,
good. Yeah.
like that mess, everything messes with me. There and I was like, what the heck? Why don't I feel that no more? And then I realized, and I think I was drawn to that book, and I read that, and I was like, my system is now, and I say now, but I still think that we're always developing. I still
Mm-hmm.
think that our bodies are still always changing in some way. But I'm to a point now where like on a dem day. it's weird. Like I know I'll try to nap around if I'm doing an event at 7 p.m. I usually will nap somewhere in the day, but 2 or 3 p.m. But if I go too late, like sometimes in a hotel, like I get there and it's like 3:30, I'm like, all right, I'll lay down for a half hour, 45 minutes, there, see if I can fall asleep. I start to fall asleep and I wake up and there's this pulsating energy in my solar plexus, and I know it's spirit already. Like, all right, I get it. I'm gonna get up now. There in that sense, like they're already starting to work with my energetic system there in some way. So I still get that, but I'm saying it's that those energy, like you feel like uplifted before readings, hours before readings. I don't have that anymore. And like I said, it did mess with me because I was like, where did this go? I believe that our body's just getting more and more in tuned
So
there
it'd
in
be like
some.
a frequency update.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
Essentially, like you just
yeah.
constantly frequency updating to the point that you're much calmer in certain aspects where other things heighten more, or like
Yes.
things coming quicker, right? Because you're
Yeah.
doing it so much.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I also have to look out too, and you guys will probably understand this too. Um, I have to look out for burnout of my energy. So
Yes,
if
yes.
I do, on Fridays, I do phone readings, and those are in the morning, and I'm usually done by like 1 o'clock, and I'm done. Like I'm like, ah, God, thank God I'm done for the week. Oh, there. And but by 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. when my kids get home, I could become reactive there to their energy sometimes. Like if they ask me to do something and I'm just sitting out, and I'm like resting there, or like something could just really, you're on overload. You're like you're burnt out. You know what I mean? That. So I really have to counter that and
Yeah.
watch that too as well, so I don't become snippy there in some way because my energy is just burnt out. For
It,
me, there's a day a week that I actually Tuesdays when I do my readings. I don't start until late in the afternoon, and I go into early evening. Those are for the people that like work and do have jobs. And when I'm done with my readings, it's 7 p.m. type thing, and it's like okay, I come down and I eat, we watch some TV, and and it's like we go to bed. I don't burn out then. It's when I do early readings in that day, I
Also that,
notice,
yeah.
and I still have to go hours there. I can notice I can become reactive in some way.
Do you feel like your awareness sometimes is in that spirit world? Because I find like sometimes I learn like I I sometimes prefer talking to people that have passed over than obviously real, live people because they've got all the, egos, they got all the it's just different. It's like a different mentality basically. Spirit world is elevated. They talk about they want to heal, they want to help, they want to bring messages of love and all these things. And when you come out of that, it's like, oh, you got to go to the dish, you got to do dishes. And it brings you really right back to reality, right? And there is like this, for me, I feel like there's like this, it's like I kind of hold a little bit with me, because it's hard to explain, but
elevating. It makes you feel better. It's,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
higher vibration. When we drop into our bodies, we're heavy and there's like, oh, here we go,
The
right? Like,
vibration, it is like a real vibration change too. It can be drained
Yeah, it's
depending on feeling full when you start or if you're depleted, like as you go, you can get,
it's interesting now because I do so much work.
yeah.
Um, like I do probably, I'm still someone that's touring, but I also do private readings. A lot of people that tour don't do privates
Yeah.
there. So I'm still doing like probably 40, 45 private readings a month and doing
Wow.
dems too. So I do so much that for me, when I'm not working, I'm done. Like I'm off. Like I'm
Yeah.
not, I don't, I'm not
You
thinking.
just like switch it off and you're like, let's go watch a softball game and like get,
Exactly. I'll watch college softball
yeah.
online, or or
Yeah.
I'll go and pitch to my daughter outside, and she'll
Yeah.
just whack the
Play with
ball.
your
Or
kids and be normal and just,
yeah, I did a video on my Instagram. I said, "What does a national touring meeting do when I come when you're not working?" And I showed I was building a train track with my 5-year-old.
yeah.
There, like we were playing with trains. Like that just brings me back to reality,
Mhm.
grounds me there. And also, it's important for me to be a dad. That's the other part of it
Yeah.
too, because I didn't even talk. Like, I had a father that who my father's still alive and God bless him. But I come from a pattern of not being good enough, right? And so it's really, and my dad, looking back now, I know through all the work that I did myself, my dad did the best that he could with what he knew. He owned it. He started a business. He
Hmm.
built it from scratch, and it became a huge, business there of machine shop, and one guy working out of his garage to employing 30 machinists there in some say. So my dad was never around, and I always carried that. So it's important for me to be a dad. It's important for me to be there for my children. It's important for me to go build a train with my son. It's important for me to go play Fortnite with my other son. It's important for me to go outside and pitch to my daughter. They're taking her to the batting cage or driving her to the lesson because that's the time we get to spend with each other. And it's there. It's balancing it all, right? There, because
Yeah.
it is important. I don't want to just keep working and being on the road or whatever. Like it's also important for me to just be a dad.
Yeah, I mean, you travel like California, Florida, like everywhere. I mean, you're tour, you have like a tour date, like, like
Yeah.
musicians would be. And so you're here and there every week, you're doing different things. Do you take time off like in the summertime when they're home more?
I try not to tour as much in the summer or do
Yeah,
shows there. I will do one here and there or maybe a local one.
yeah.
But I do try to not do as much shows and just kind of be present because they're home, they're out of school. It's like we get to hang out more and so on. But we get to go away, and I do. The one thing is I get to make my own schedule, right? And for the most part, I get to make my own schedule. So I am here in the morning when they're getting ready and leaving for school. Sometimes I'm here when they're coming home there, and it's play. You know what I mean? It's playing, and it heals my own inner child.
Mm-hmm.
It
Play.
heals all that you didn't get as a child from your dad.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
why that's so
You're
important.
like breaking the cycle, which is a huge. It's
Yeah.
huge.
It's funny because when I'm out and for the law, we live in a very rural part of New Jersey, right? I live out by the Poconos, really, and it's rural, and so the reason why I bring that up is because at first, when my kids started joining sports in this area, we moved out here. I didn't grow up here. I grew up in near the New York City. There, when we moved out here, and then my kids started joining sports, I didn't ever told anyone what I did.
Right.
Most people think I'm either a cop or I'm in
Right.
construction. Like they have no
Right.
idea. There, and so when they started finding out, they're like, "What? Medium?" And then I'm probably thinking, "Oh my God, they're probably thinking about boardwalk psychic." There in that sense, but then like it started to build traction. So now, and then people started, friending my wife on Facebook and me, and now they see everything that I do. And I did two dems here, a local place, right in town, literally a couple months ago, and like half my daughter's softball parents showed up, half there's teachers there, and I was like, Jesus Christ, there. But anyway, the reason why I'm saying this is because when I'm out, when I go to softball or baseball or soccer or we're at some sort of function, I don't really want to talk about mediumship.
Ah, no,
No.
you're off.
But they want to. The parents want to ask me questions, and I'm like, I don't really want to. I don't say this. I don't want to talk about it. But it's like, like yeah, I'll not avoid it. If they ask me a question, I'll absolutely answer them. But I'm not. I don't want to keep engaging.
Yeah, yeah.
You could say
You're
though,
like, you're
I
like,
have business
this
hours
is the-
and I have life hours. Like you can, I'm in life hours right now. If you want to talk business, let's talk during these hours. Or here's my Instagram. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. Come
This
to
is
it.
like part of the sensitivity. I feel like for me, when I'm out in the world, I just don't want to open myself. I don't want to open that room. Also because if we're here, it's because we're having a human experience.
Yeah.
So I always juggle with these two things because okay, if I'm here, I have these gifts. I can use them when I'm with clients, but I'm also here to have the gift of life. So sometimes I feel like that's why I have shut it down in the past because I'm here to have this human experience, and it's tricky at times to just stay open, and I'm still learning that. I feel like I'm still in the two, perfecting life, balancing life.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a balance. It is.
It
You
is.
can't see. Here's my thing, and again, someone will probably come for me if we're saying this. You can't be open all the time. It
No.
would be like you're just draining your energy. There's people that I've either heard or read or talked about, like, they're just open all the time, and I'm like, no, you're not. Like it's impossible to be that way because you're just draining your life force energy. It's hard because and listen, we're talking about this. I mean, I could have a whole nother session and talk about like the downfalls of mediumship, right? There's times that after I do readings, it's like a piece of my soul was sucked away there, and I'm on the downside. I'm depressed. I'm uh, I mean, I'm talking about actually that day because my energy has just been wiped
Mm-hmm.
from me. And I tell my wife, and she's like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, I just feel like a piece of my soul is missing." Like that's how much energy it takes. It's funny. I wanted to post. I have to do it with a gray shirt probably there, but there's times when I do readings and I'm done, and I have to change my shirt because the back of my they're so wet and sweat there what our body goes through there in some way. I'm like depleted. You know what I mean? So even that where you're talking about the sensitivity before, it's also keeping the body functional. Like there's a specific like I take magnesium every night. You know, I
Me
know
too.
that's a thing, right? There. I was extremely low on vitamin D too.
Me too. Oh my God.
Yeah, I think that's a thing with mediums, you
This
know.
is so
There. So
interesting.
Yeah,
it's
we
you know
talked
it's
about
finding out also too is keeping the body optimal because the body's really the conduit, right? The body is the conduit, and so therefore it's following all these things. But there's so much, in the sense of the downside. It's depressing sometimes. I
yeah,
deal with death all day long.
yeah.
Early on, especially more so. I mean, not so much early on. It's after when I had early on when my children, every little thing, a bump on them, I'm thinking it's cancer because how many kids I brought through with childhood cancer. You know what I mean? Every time, it's like being a helicopter parent in some way. When my kids near the pool, it's like, oh my God, I brought through someone that was drowning. Are they going to drown right now? Like, am I trusting my intuition? Am I really getting that from spirit to say this to my kid right now, or is it just me being a total nut job there because of the experiences that I've had and brought.
Thank you, Anthony.
I done do a reading with a woman who I've become friends with now. There and her son was I think 7.5, 8 years old. Ryan. He fell off a boat. All the kids did, and she had two sons. They fell off a boat, and the kid got chopped up by the motor. You know what I mean? And I'm friends with her now, and I've done readings for her in the past. There, but it's like those
Yeah.
experience. You're dealing with death all
All the
day
time.
Yeah.
long and then I'm not and then there was a period that I went through probably 2 years ago. Maybe that's probably 4 years ago. That was my frame of reference there, but that I was bringing through a lot of children that have died either through drugs or
Mm.
or childhood cancers or
Mhm.
accidents. And it was, my biggest thing is, and I get emotional saying this, what we do, people will say, "Oh, thank you so much." I just got an email the other day from someone I did a contact for who lost a son to drug overdose, and she was thanking me for what I do. But in that period of time that I went through, it was like, does this even matter? Is this even
Mm.
helping anyone? Because my biggest thing is we can't bring them back.
Mhm.
No.
That makes me sad because of all the people. You wonder why? Like, why? That's my question. I got questions when I get there. Why? Why? Why does the child at 5 years old have to die to cancer? You know what I mean? Like, and I know it from a metaphysical standpoint, and the most I can justify that, I know that that soul came here with already a path that it knew it was leaving earlier, and it chose to be in that body at the time. But we're having a human experience, like Mariana said. And my
Yeah.
human brain says why, why. And 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 I'm not a medium, and you guys might get mad at me for this, but I'm not a medium that also is into new age their stuff. I believe in manifestation. I think the mind is powerful, but I don't believe that we create our reality based upon what we want there in some way. And here's why I say that. And when mediums go around and say that, and God, if one of you guys do it, don't kill me. There,
No.
talk to the mother that lost her child at 5. How
Mhm.
can you possibly say your thoughts created that reality? You can't. And the child at 5 can't even control his brainwaves aren't even done yet. It's science. We're talking science. The brainwave, the ego is formed around 7.5, 8 years old. So a child's brainwaves are in data or delta, data or is it theta or
Yeah.
delta there for those first couple of years. They're in a hypnotic state. They don't even control their own thoughts yet there. So a 5-year-old has no ability to go and heal himself there. So when people say, I believe in the mind-body connection, I believe that we can heal certain things, but not that all of our thought does. Your thoughts create your reality. There, talk to the mother that lost the son that got chopped up by a motor that their son fell off. You think her thoughts created that, or you think his thought? They're not even thinking about that. So as a medium, I think that we need to think about compassion. I think that we need to uh, I'll say it from Ted Lasso, from that perspective of the quote from Ted Lasso: "Be curious, not judgmental." You know, be curious to why things are, because that's really the $1 million question, right? Of reality. What is reality? Why are we here? And do we do? I believe in manifestation. I always love, and again, early on, I read so many books. I didn't have TV my first year. When all those things were happening, I couldn't afford TV there, and so what was funny was people just started sending me books. It was like the weirdest thing. It was like, again, there was the synchronicities. Like I went for an astrology reading, and the lady's like, "Oh, you should read this." She gave me Many Laughs, Many Masters by Dr. Brian Weiss. Fastest book I ever read. I read it in 36 hours. I couldn't believe it. I am someone with really bad ADHD, so I read a page, I have to go back and read it again. I'm like, what did I just read? So I'm reading a page 3 times, and I'm like, well, I don't even want to read anymore. But that book I read in 36 hours because it was fascinating to me. Because here's the skeptic, you know what I mean? That hardcore doctor of the mind, head of the hospital and university in Miami there. I don't know if it was Cornell or whatnot, but I forget the hospital. But so skeptical, and now he has this experience with this patient, and now he is the leading regressionist in the world there. So when I read that there, and people just started giving me, it was like, okay. Then all of a sudden, my aunt like sent me a John Edward book out of nowhere because she knew the cameraman. It was like the weirdest thing, and I read this anyway. The reason why I'm saying this, Marianne Williamson. I love what she said in Return to Love. There was a book that she wrote, Return to Love. I thought it was very powerful. I love that book. There was a quote in there she talked about because she was speaking at a seminar in New York City. And she said, and when the person was done, she was talking about, kind of returning to love. Returning to love meant returning to God. She just couldn't use the word God there. She didn't want people to think she was ultra religious or something in that way, or would turn to tear people away there. And she said in there in her seminar, a man raised his hand and he's like, "You're telling me all this stuff, but you're telling me that, he was trying to be an actor, and he has his vision board and he's doing his exercises to manifest." And she said, like, "You're telling me not to do that?" And she said, "No, I'm not telling you to do that. The mind is powerful and you might get what you want. What I'm saying is that while you're working on that small," because he was trying to get a small part on Hill Street Blues, if you guys remember that show there, like while you're trying to get your small part on Hill Street Blues, what I'm saying is God has a bigger starring role for you over here, but you're too busy you're trying to control and get your small part on Hill Street Blues while God's got you a supporting role or an acting, the major role there over here. And I always thought that was so powerful because where I see my life, where it is today to where I thought it would be is completely opposite there in some way. So for me, I try to, and it's hard because the ego is powerful, right? I try to live my life in the sense of surrendering, showing up, and allowing spirit, God, the universe, I don't care whatever you want to call it, to move us in some way there. And I truly, it's hard, like sometimes. Especially when children are involved, clearly, there, because then you got to make decisions for them too. But it is hard. But it's just something that I think of as a medium, and I hope other mediums listen to this. Like, just sometimes we got to think twice of the things that we say because we are affecting the consciousness. We are affected. We are someone that deals with people's grief, and some live long lives and some live very short, and that's the answer. There's questions around that, and I don't believe that any medium has the answer to that.
Thank you. I feel like, you spoke about so many things that I was like, I have so many questions now that you're speaking. It's like a box opens. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then you just answered so many things from, like, I call it co-creating with God instead of manifesting. Like when you're actually aligned to that, when you surrender completely. And that's why I do shadow work, inner child work. Like, what is blocking me to listen to you constantly? And everything you said about mediumship, grief, like the body takes a toll, and we all know that, and the fear of that. And I feel like when you're clairsentient, Ciarra is super clairsentient. I had it as a child. I shut it down. I open it up, and then I'm like, oh my gosh. And I rather just hear or see, because I feel like my body takes much more on that. So, anyways, I feel like this has been. I wish we had you another time. I'm
No,
gonna
we
book a
can do it
meeting with you
again. We'll do it again. We'll do it
because
again.
this
Of
is
course. Let's do
amazing.
it again.
Like,
I do it
there's so
quarterly.
much truth. Sorry, good ladies, you go.
I love that. I love that I had questions that you just answered for me. So I was like, okay, I just checked that one off my list. Thank you very much. And then Paige went into the child question. I was like, oh, and I'll get rid of that one. Thanks, Paige. Because when you're sitting in this collective of the four of us, I mean, we are constantly energetically sharing. We just, because we're open with each other, which is a beautiful gift. So it's been an absolute pleasure to have you. You had this quote that I just wanted to read that was on your Instagram that I really liked. And it's like, you have the ability to change someone's life. Don't ever waste it.
I love that.
And it's so beautifully resonated with so much of my life that I was like, that is so simple, but so profound. And I think that it's a beautiful way to kind of wrap up this session with you, because you've changed your life so immensely to get to the point that you can help support others in their grief, which is really a beautiful thing. So thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you guys. And it's always an honor to even be asked to do one of these things. And again, I'm sorry for taking so long because you guys are really cool. There, but not saying that people are not cool. I'm saying I had a really enjoyable time, and I share in what you were saying there, Ciarra, like about like the energy that's being exchanged here there. So I just you all have a wonderful supportive energy in some way.
Can you
Beautiful.
share a little? We loved having you, and yes, we'll have you back. I'll message you after
Yeah.
here. We can fit it in again. But can you share what you're doing so people can find you if you're offering classes? I know you're still touring, so give us some, and I'll put all the stuff in the notes so people can like find you, work with you, learn.
Yeah, it's been an adjustment because I did get signed to an agency last year. I just actually hit the year mark a couple days ago. So when I say it's been an adjustment, I've been touring more, but also one of the things that I've committed to because I felt spirit like, okay, I got to get back to teaching there. So I've committed to doing some classes again this year. I'm in the process of this class called Reading the Soul right now. When I'm out of that, I'm going to go back to do like an intermediate or advanced mediumship class. All that stuff you could find it will be on my website or any of my socials. So Instagram is Anthony Mrocka. I think my Facebook is Psychic Medium Anthony Mrocka. So they'll be listed there. Also, if there's other mediums listening to this, I run the Mediumship group, International Mediumship Development Group. It's on Facebook. You can just search International Mediumship Development Group. I run that group with one woman who's a medium from Ireland who I met when I actually didn't even get into that. Was mentored technically by Tony Stockwell for a year there. So I went to England back and forth 11 times in the year there to do weekend mentorship there with him. And I met that woman there. And there's another woman that is an admin of that group. So those classes are always posted there. I usually try to also do like one or two circles a year or two. So I think I may be doing a circle. It's a practice circle. It's on Zoom, breakout rooms, the whole thing. And I'll give you guys exercises and try to give you a little, some teachings around it in some way. One of my big things too is I believe that it should be affordable. Also too. So I try to keep costs down there in that sense. And but all that stuff you can find on my socials, my website, anthonymrocka.com, Instagram is Anthony Mrocka, Psychic Medium Anthony Mrocka, or like I said, the Facebook is International Mediumship Development Support, I believe it is.
Yeah, awesome.
Join that group at
I was going to say,
request.
I've been following the International Medium, I think probably since I took classes with you, and actually Siobhan and Ciarra and Holly Robinson, we just practiced together a couple weeks ago.
Oh, Holly, I love Holly.
And and so Siobhan's going to come on and share her story too, because I love how she does the
Siobhan.
Yeah, and she's awesome. Sometimes I'm like, what are you saying?
I met her. Did she tell you I met her? That me and her were mentored in England together.
Yeah, she did. She's like, I think he picked me because I was the only Irish person he knew.
But at the time when I first started the group, well, no, I always liked Siobhan. like I always felt drawn to her when we were
Yeah,
over in England. She's a cool person,
she is cool.
very energetic. We shared, it was interesting because, in the British world, in the mediumship world, there is, there's kind of a slight crack there of British mediumship and American mediumship
Yeah. Yep.
there. And me and Siobhan in our class, in our mentorship, there was 18 of us. And it's right when Tony Stockwell was actually starting to change some of his beliefs because he was an
Yes.
AFC tutor
Yeah.
and, very in the box that you make you go. And he started to get out of the box that year. This was going all the way back to like 2012 or 2013 when he started to change. So we would have these debates. Or talks that turn into debates
Yeah.
there because someone would bring something up and then half the class like was born to the I mean, you were in
Yeah.
England, they're very British,
Well, they're
and then
spiritualist mediums, right? So they've got
yes, very that way,
right.
right? And then one of my big things in my work now, and I think in the sense of I guess you can call me an American medium, whatever, but is what do they see of our world now? And I know that's when Tony was really starting to shift his perspective on that, like things that just happened, or they'll give me names of people that people just spoke to, like they heard the conversation there. And to me, to be honest with you, that's the evidence that people say there's no way he could know that there in that sense. So that's what, but we started to argue, like there would be debates about that in class because there was you have to be only talk about this. And Siobhan was on that team of, kind of progressive there in that sense. And so I've always was drawn to Siobhan. I read for Siobhan years ago. And it's funny because then that's what she came to me and said, like, you were right. Like, you said something to me. You gave me a prediction. I didn't know how we were going to do it. It happened. And then that's when I believe I asked her to be on there. She's from Ireland. And I had another British medium who then kind of went separate ways. And I had someone, I wanted mediums from different countries. That's really what I was trying for. But then it turned out it's just us.
She's great. Yeah, I appreciate the out of the box because.
And Siobhan's a straight shooter.
Yeah.
Oh, she's fabulous.
Yeah. We did our body scans on each other. So we did more like psychic work on each other, which we both had great readings. We were like, oh, this is so fun. I'm like, I'll practice with you anytime. This was great. Yeah, she's really cool. So she's going to come on and share too. So
and Holly, God,
Holly.
I think Holly mentored with me years and years ago, and then I got to meet her and
her too. Yeah,
they came to Denver. Actually, I did it when I did a dem in Denver. Actually, so funny. I just came across that the other day. I just saw her. There was a picture of all of us at dinner there because they all came to I think it was me and Cindy. I think me and Cindy Kaser were working with each other out in Denver, and they came to the show, and I got to have dinner with all of them first.
Yeah, so awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again. We just love having you.
You guys are awesome.
Thank you.
It's great. I'm sorry for taking so long.
No, we love it.
But we'll definitely do it again. I mean, there's so many conversations and topics.
There's so much more we can talk about. This was
absolutely
awesome.
Yeah. That's why my wife's like, oh yeah, that's why my wife because somehow if my wife's very sensitive too, which is interesting to me because now you have two sensitive people. So jokes in my house don't really go well.
That house.
When you want to bust on someone in my house, doesn't really go well there because we all take it to heart and personal there and sensitive there. So, but my wife loves when I come to social events with her because she's like, because someone will ask me a question even though I want to, and next thing I know, I'm talking and talking and talking, and I'm oversharing as she said because I think that's the empath. You know what I mean? Like because we just keep rambling on there because the energy is so high with all the people around us. We're like, what the hell's happening here? So I just keep talking there. So yeah, it's always fun. That's why I said we could probably talk for hours.
I love it. I love it.
We'll have you back if you will come.
Definitely have you back.
Yeah, I absolutely will. Yeah,
okay,
definitely.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful event tonight too.
Thank you guys.
You know that it will be amazing. If you haven't seen him live, you can find him on YouTube as well, and some of your socials will have like clips of your videos, and he is spot on with names, which is like something that I'll aspire to. But as a teacher, you always said like just keep practicing. Remember,
I was about to say that. I will say that if anyone's listening and developing and doing that, names will come when spirit says you're ready.
Oh, I love that.
And I'll tell you why, because there was an experience that I was driving all the way down from New Jersey to Lancaster to do a dem, and it's like a 2-hour drive. I didn't stay down there, I just drove. And actually, I was, yeah. Anyway, on the drive that day, I felt this overwhelming sense of gratitude and the way that I was developed. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I believe that sometimes if you start to get names too early on, you start dropping some hardcore evidence.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because you're just like, you got the name, so therefore you don't feel like you have to go into the other evidence. I was reversed. But I remember when I started working with Cindy Kaza, I was like, oh my, who the fuck is this? Like, she was like a name queen.
Yeah, she's amazing too.
Yeah, and I wasn't getting really names, but it was the evidence that led to that person. I'm big on like how they pass. They'll give me lung cancer, this and that, blah blah blah. Yeah. But I had that gratitude that day. I'll never forget, because the way that spirit developed me, and then I realized most mediums want names.
Yeah,
I did. But allow spirit to develop you in the way that spirit's developing you, because when it's time, they will open up. Like, those names will start to come up. There.
That should be a quote. That should be a quote. Allow spirit to develop you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that spirit is the number one teacher. The number one teacher.
Yeah.
And don't let teachers tell you you're doing it wrong. I mean, listen, there's ethics and integrity. We could talk about that next time too. But don't let a teacher put you in a box.
Yes.
No, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, we love that. Thank you so much, Anthony. You
Thank
are
you, Anthony.
a light. So thank you for shining so bright here.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Have a great day too.
Yeah, take care.
Oh.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.